Asima tells a name called Gogol. Actually, Gogol is the name of a Russian writer, Nikolai Gogol. But due to this name, there are a lot of problems this family they face. Confused with this pet name, and when he goes for his education, kindergarten education, the administrators they do not want to actually accept any other name than Gogol, because that was the name which was registered at the time of his birth. And later on, they changed the name legally as Nikhil. However, in this novel we find that Gogol comes in contact with a girl called Maxine, and Asima doesn't like this girl. She doesn't want that a foreign girl should be. They are actually Mosumi. He marries Mosumi, an Indian girl staying in USA. But again, this girl, Mosumi, doesn't feel happy with Gogol, and he falls in love with another person called Dimitri, and this is again and it Rossin stories which was given to him by his father. So this contradiction in human relationship, and the Asima and Ashok, they are the traditional parents of Indian tradition. They are the parents of the Indian tradition. They don't want any girl from Europe to marry their son. But again, those who are staying in America like Mosumi, they do not find Mosumi rejects, gives off the life, and again she gets married to Dimitri. So thereby we find that a lot of confusions, a lot of cultural clash, a lot of individual crisis has been reflected in the writing of Jhumpa Lahiri. And Salman Rushdie, who was actually born in Mumbai, got settled in Pakistan for some time. Then he left, stayed in Britain. You know that he's famous for writing his two books, Satanic Verses and Midnight Children. And he was very popular for these two books. In the book Midnight Children, we find how actually the character, the protagonist, Salem Sanai, has been facing a lot of problems due to several migration that they have undertaken after the independence of the country. So those children who were born at the stroke of the midnight when India and Pakistan got independence, so these children rather were divulged into several types of problems during their migration and during their contrary culture. So Salem Sanai is having a telepathic power, and by virtue of his telepathic power, he makes contact with the children, those who are born at midnight, and these children, they discuss about the issues of cultural, linguistic, religious and political differences that exist between the two countries, like India and Pakistan. So here Salem goes to Pakistan, again returns to Pakistan because of the several migration. Sometimes he stays in Pakistan, and sometimes because some of his relatives were there in India, he comes here. And there actually during the time of emergency led by the then Prime Minister Indira Gandhi, there actually he becomes a political prisoner. And he realizes that it is not the country or the culture, it is the personal history of a man that actually makes him successful or unsuccessful. We have Anita Desai's Bye Bye Blackbird. Anita Desai is Indian novelist, professor of humanities in Massachusetts Institute of Technology. and she has written so many by Blackbird, which actually is having a very simple plot, not an intricate plot like the conventional literature, where we find that there are three characters: Aditi, Sara, and so this novel is based on two things. One is their imagination about United Kingdom, what they thought about Great Britain, as we Indians, when we read Milton, Shakespeare, and Wordsworth and other writers, we have a very grand vision of, a beautiful vision of United Kingdom. So Dev has gone to UK, United Kingdom, for higher studies to get his degree in advanced economics. And there, when Dev goes to Britain, he finds a different Britain as what was there in his mind. So when he was in India, before he went to United Kingdom for his higher degrees, he had imagined Britain as a very beautiful place. He had imagined Britain as a very grand and majestic place, where people are very broad, where people, they do not have any kind of meanness to accept others. But when they goes there to United Kingdom, he stays with Aditi and Sara. Aditi is an Indian, and Sara, from the very name, you know that she is a British lady. So Sara has two roles. One role is that Sara, when she stays in the home, she is an Indian lady. When Sara goes outside the home, she is a British lady. So she has two roles to play. When she is the wife of Aditi and stays at home, she is an Indian lady. When she goes out of the home, she is a British lady. So there we find that Aditi is very complacent that he is staying in the United Kingdom, and he is married to Sara, a British lady, and they both faces a lot of problems because of this the sense of ego that was there with Aditi. So Dev's imaginary world of United Kingdom, the beautiful lands and the natural surrounding, about the broadness of the people, that the people are very highly educated and highly acceptable. This changes when he goes to Britain, because in the morning when he comes out from the house, he finds beggars in the streets. He thought that only beggars are there in the Asian countries. He thought that only beggars are found in the Indian streets. But when morning and he goes to the street, he finds beggars there. This was very quite shocking for him. So that is why we find that Dev finds that the people, they do not accept the Asians so easily. And you know that the British people, they speak less, they shut their mouths, they hide their throats because they may catch cold. So they stay indoors. And that is why the roads are very empty. The roads are not full of crowd. As in India, we find that the roads are full of crowd. And you can talk to several people in India. In the morning, if you go to a coffee stall or tea stall, there you can talk with so many people. You can find so many throat, because they may catch cold when they go outside. So many people, most of the people, either they go to the work or they stay indoors. So there actually he feels the streets are very deserted, and there actually he feels very suffocated. All the people are busy. When there are crowd, they are busy in their own way, and you stand there as an Asian or as an Indian in complete isolation. You cannot talk to the people, meet to the people. You have a sense of great alienation. So this black bird is about the immigrant, about the people, those who are migrated to other countries. Their condition is like a black bird. So this is a very symbolic title, Bye Bye Black Bird. And at the end of the story, you find
that Aditi doesn't want to stay in England anymore. There is a desire to come back to the home. Aditi wants to come back, and he requests Sarah to come with him. But Sarah, at first she was not interested to come to India, but finally she agrees to come with Aditi to India.
But they had a different determination because they had gone for higher studies. And even though they felt that he is not accepted there, and there is a very strong feeling of isolation, and there is a strong feeling of isolation. In spite of that, Dev takes a very determined decision, takes a very strong decision that until and unless his degree is over, he will be staying in Britain. So when Aditi Sarah they return to India, at the time they request Sarah to find an accommodation for him. And Sarah helps Dev to find an accommodation. Dev stays there, and Aditi and Sarah they return to India. So there is a problem with any Asian or any Indian, those who go to a foreign land, they find some sort of cultural isolation. That one of my friend who had been to America, Diasporic writing, we find that they have expressed literature in the truest sense of the term. At the beginning of my speech, that it is not only rather a literature of alienation or exile or isolation. It is a literature for the search of identity. It is a literature to prove yourself as an Indian. And that is why the Indian writers, the galaxy of Indian writers, those who stayed outside, away from the homeland, they proved to be expressed their inner strength. Particularly the Indian diasporic writing in the post-colonial era completely differs from the diasporic writing of the other countries. So because India has a very rich tradition, a glorious tradition, India has a different social setting where every individual is connected with the other. India is a country where you find ceremonies and festivals throughout the year. You find ceremonies and festivals in each year. India has a life which is completely integrated emotionally rather than economically. You may be poor, but there is no shortage of, there is no lack of emotional love. Our homes are filled with love, and that is why when a baby was born in New York by Asima and Asoka, there was nobody. There were only two in the hospital. But when a baby is born in India, in the house, you find a lot of people, not only the family members of your house, but also you find other people, they come to your house and there is a celebration. There is a celebration in every occasion. And our great festivals, our great tradition, our great culture, our spirituality, our sense of belongingness is great in the world, and that is why those who have stayed away from India, they have expressed in the writings about this glorious culture, about the emotional intensity of human life, about the glories of Indian life, about the glories of Indian poetry. Indian poets they have tried to introduce rasa theory. They have tried to introduce other kind of aesthetics that we find in our traditional literature. By staying there, they have given message of our spirit, message of our tradition,
They have maintained the beauty of our dress, Indian saris. They have maintained the tasty food of India. So when we read, particularly the poetry of the diasporic poets, where we find they have treated Indian food, they have treated Indian dress, Indian tradition, Indian culture. They have glorified it. When we read the stories in the novels by the Indian diasporic writer, we find what are the conflicts they face, the clash between the Indian culture and the popular cultures of the world. And that is why the Indian could establish themselves in a field of world literature. It is because of the contribution of the Indian diaspora to the world that not only in the field of literature, you know that in America, many Indians are very successful entrepreneurs. But they have not forgotten India. They have not forgotten the life in India. Whenever we read actually their writings, we feel that at every moment, there is India in their writings. The NRIs, those who are staying in United States and other places of the world, they have never forgotten India. They have contributed for India. And this belongingness that we find in their life, that is reflected in their literature. And that is why sometimes when researchers and scholars, they talk of the feelings of exile and alienation in Indian diasporic writing, I feel that there is a great sense of belongingness. There is a great endeavor by the Indian writers. Those who are staying outside India, they have glorified our nation and they have given message to the whole world that we are away from our home, but our whole world is the real home. That is why my opinion is that we no doubt find this geographical dislocation and this poetic exile, nostalgia and quest for identity in the Indian writings, in the post-colonial Indian diasporic writings. Also there is the message of assimilation. There is a message of sharing experiences of both the culture, and that is why they have been